Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I am so excited and honored to be with Mr. Paul Cullen, chef, sommelier, and guitarist. Welcome, Paul.
Hey Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, my friend. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, make sure to like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That only helps us, that helps the bands. And also check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR Outfitters.com. They're doing a 10 sale right now, so check that out as well. So, Paul, thank you so much for doing this. I know you're a busy man. I it could be possibly called, you could be called a Renaissance man with everything that you do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, I've been called that a while back when all this was coming together. I always think Renaissance, like I wear, a velvet jacket with a ruffled shirt, and I eat big turkey legs.
With no utensils.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, so let's talk about, as I said in the intro, as a chef, let's talk about currently how this year, how is 2023 for you, like accomplishment wise, in that field? What were you excited about that you did this year?
Well, I think we've my job as a chef is to come to your house and cook for you, or do corporate events, which I've done more of those lately. So we had a few of those this year. But just on the overall, we're going to be well over 220 events just cooking for people in 2023. But one of my favorite ones was I went to Aspen. This group flew me out there. They're called the Pernod Ricard Group. They own Jameson's Irish Whiskey and Absolute Vodka, Kahlua, maybe my favorite bourbon, Rabbit Hole. So they flew me and my assistant Nina out there and to the Hotel Jerome, and we cooked for 18 of their higher ups and in a private room, and we set up a table and I made risotto for everybody right in front of them, and that was really special. And then we did a VIP at a casino in New York at the Tioga Downs Casino, which is kind of south of the Finger Lakes, and we did 100 people there of their VIPs, and they all have to spend over 200,000 a year, in at the casino. So I was like, wow, this is right in my wheelhouse, So those are sort of the semi highlights. I mean, I love what I do, and I love cooking for people. A lot of times in this area, it's for families that are getting together here in the Delmarva area, which is Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. So that's been fun. I love seeing families get together, and I cook for them, and they all sit at one table and get to enjoy each other's company for the most part. And there are people that have families that haven't gotten together in a year. So that's really fun. And then some of my favorite are birthday parties. 60th, 65th, 70th. And sometimes there's surprises, which are really cool because we knock on the door and the birthday person opens the door and they're like, "Oh my God, Paul Cullen's here." I'm like, "Where?" So that's a lot of fun too. But just on a regular basis, cooking for people, and then pouring my wines from Italy and then playing music afterwards. It's just each event is different, but each event is lovely.
So now that you've been doing corporate events but you kind of started out doing it in people's houses and using their own kitchens, how is that dynamic different other than like the obvious reasons?
Yeah, well, obvious reason I'm in a commercial kitchen, like I was at the Hotel Jerome. With that being said, that night they had a 200-person, 10-course wine dinner that they had to perform, plus the restaurant was open. So during the day, while I was prepping in the kitchen with the chefs, and everybody was awesome, and of course, the Bad Company thing came up, and people were like, "Wow, how cool is that? The guys at Bad Company's in our kitchen," So what I did suggest is that like I said, I cooked in that room with them. They set me up a table with some burners, and so I didn't have to be in all that chaos. Which would have been fine, except I just thought the experience would be better me cooking for them right in the room. which was cool. So the difference on that is, being in a commercial kitchen and having, some help from the chefs and sous chefs and, servers and all that, where like me and my assistant Nina roll in and we do 20 people in somebody's house without a problem.
Yeah. So let's talk about then where you got your inspiration for cooking. Your grandmother, Italian, obviously, so that is kind of your backbone of your cooking. Talk about like that relationship and how that kind of came about.
Well, I think growing up, we were kind of like a big fat Greek wedding. We lived right next door to my grandparents, and I'm the oldest of 31 grandchildren, and my mom was the oldest of all the kids also. And so she
31.
was a working mom back in the early 60s, when I was born, and she used to hand me off to my grandmother. My grandmother was always in the kitchen, so I truly, and then my mom would go to work, and I'd hang out with my grandmother all day. And my first memories are being in the kitchen with my grandmother. And I just, growing up, and sadly she passed away when I was 15, but I got to hang out with her a lot. And I saw the Italian way, even though I didn't know that that's what that was until I went to Italy. And we would go to my first experience in Italy, we would go to a winery, and we walked into the main house, and there's Nona and Grandma looking at how many people that just walked in the door and what are they going to make, and they run right over to the kitchen and start whipping up some food. And my grandmother was the same way. Somebody would pull in the yard and she would go, oh Polly, what am I going to make them, and I said, I was thinking to myself, well, they didn't even come in the door yet, they might not even be hungry, but it didn't matter, right? So I saw that Italian way, and again, I didn't know it was cool like I do now, like because I've seen it in Italy done that way. So that was my inspiration later on in life, was that same sort of thing, just cooking for whoever came over the house. And in fact, that's how in-home dining got started. Me and my wife loved to have people over for dinner. Well, we had a table for 10 at the time. We picked different couples and see if we could kind of connect them, like social networking sort of way. And that's how it started, because a friend of mine that went to one of my dinners said that, hey, can you do this dinner at my wife's surprise birthday party for 10 people? And I said, of course. And then he said, can you bring your guitar and play a couple songs? I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have to charge you. So I wasn't going to charge him first. I don't even think I charged him. But so, yeah, I went over there and cooked for him, and I played guitar, and I was on a local radio station the next morning. And they said, what'd you do last night? I said, I cooked for people at their house for a party, and I played music afterwards. And everybody's like, what? I said, yeah, that's what I did, And the owner of the radio station heard me and called me about halfway home from Ocean City and said, hey, we got friends coming, and we think it would be a really cool thing to do a dinner and have you come in and do your dinner and play music. And that was, let's see, it was 2014. It was just December 28th, 2014. And that was my first dinner. And then he actually paid me double what I charged him. I was like, hey, I like this, And then it just full on. The first year, which would have been 2015, I did 14 events. In the last 3 years, we've done over 220.
So was the radio station Ocean 98, or what was the?
Yep,
Yeah.
Layton. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I lived in Ocean City, Maryland for 7 years,
Okay.
and I lived in Rehoboth for 2. So I'm very
nice.
familiar. So
Yeah.
what brought you down to Lewis? What is it about that area, and what is it about, like as you said, Delmarva, that's so enchanting?
I just absolutely love it. I came here on vacation just a little over 22 years ago because a friend of mine, Michael Daisy, he's a drummer. He needed a bass player, and he was in the band that I was in. That it was our band that I went from Boys of Summer to Bad Company, and so I left Florida after Bad Company. He moved back to Delaware because that's in Florida is where we knew each other, and
Okay.
he called me. Actually, he had to call like 8 Paul Cullens in Buffalo, and he finally got me on the phone. I didn't know there was that many Paul Cullens, but yeah, he said, hey, man, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm freezing my ass off, and I'm sick of shoveling snow. He goes, I got a great gig for you, man. Why don't you come to Delaware? and I got a band that he's a bass player. I'm like, you know what? I was thinking of getting out of here, out of Buffalo, because we just had a horrendous winter like they did last year. And not that good winters happen in Buffalo, but these are extra worse. And so I somehow made it down here, 4th of July weekend of 2001, and truly kind of fell in love with the place right away. And I didn't really have any expectations. I remember driving to Ocean City and coming back over the Indian River Bridge, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. So we had a great time. And on the last night, I went to see the band that I was going to play in, and the band was okay, but I was thinking I need to get out of Buffalo, So I was gonna move here. I pretty much sure I was gonna move here, but in through the door that night walks this blonde with tattoos and braces, and hot blonde, and I was just newly single, and now that's my wife, Bonnie. That's why I'm going on date night with tonight. So
That's a great story. And how long have you guys been married now?
18 years. Yeah. Yeah.
So did it take a lot of convincing to get her to come here too?
Oh, she was already here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry,
Gotcha.
she was at that bar that I went to see the band. It was
Okay.
Irish Eyes in Lewis
Yep, yep.
before it
Yeah.
burned down twice. But anyways, yeah, so she came in there, she knew the band, so I ended up sitting at the band table with them, and then she asked me to dance, and I danced, and then I went up there and kicked ass on bass and wowed everybody, and then wowed her, and then 10 days later I was back, and she'd already been here for 2 years. So yeah,
That's
and
great.
it was cool when I got here. It didn't, the band was fine, but it was really hard, unless you played in a situation like I did in Bad Company. It's really hard to understand how hard it is to go play Irish Eyes. You know what I mean? Instead of playing Merriweather Post in front of 16,000 people. So I had a lot of inner demons on all that and how all that worked, and I really didn't want to do that. And so I did different things. I did drywall with my friend who was the drummer, and I did painting, and I did decks, and I ended up being a mortgage broker at one time, all because I didn't want to play bass at Irish Eyes, and then it worked out in 2007. I switched to guitar, and that's when everything got better. I was kind of meandering through and just kind of making a living, enjoying my life with my wife, and and our doggies, and then just kind of took off from when I switched to guitar and started writing my own songs. The cooking thing didn't start yet because that was still 7 years later, but I still love to cook for people. So yeah, then I was kind of on my way, and here I am now with a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so let I want to ask. So, a lot of the families that you, or a lot of the houses that you have done, let's just say this year, how many of them would you say ask you cooking questions while you're cooking? And then also, how many of them share like their own like recipes, or like will say like, hey, have you ever made this, or this is how I make it? Like, I'm sure you get some great stories, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just like this kitchen you have in your background.
Yeah.
People love to hang out in the kitchen. In fact, I find it quite boring when they're in another room, because I've done so many dinners. I've done 1,600 dinners now, and you know, I got it down, and I know how things happen. And my assistant Nina is awesome. She takes care of the charcuterie board and the apps, and then she just works the room. And it's like we're like a well-oiled machine. I walk in now, I roll in a tall toolbox, then I open it up, and all my knives and all my stuff's in it, and spices and everything I need. I don't have to go into any of the drawers when I go to somebody's house. So yeah, they love it, for most. For the most part, they love hanging out in the kitchen with me and asking me questions, not only about the food but about my past, and being a musician and all that.
Gotcha.
So it's really cool. And then yeah, somebody will say, "Hey, how do you make yours?" And I'm showing them. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I usually do it this way." I'm like, "Well, try it this way." So yeah, a lot of banter going on in between, and while they're drinking my starter wine, which is Lambrusco, just kind of hanging out. And if you're standing next to Nina while she's fixing the charcuterie board, she just hands off cheese and salami to you. So I really love that part of the a part of the event. And a lot of times it's just the owners or the hosts, that while before all the guests get there, So we really get to know everybody, and they're always like, "Oh, we'll leave you alone. We'll go." And I'm like, "No, no, hang out, pour a glass of wine, And then, of course, they ask me if I want one. Of course, I say yes, because it would be rude not to, So we just kind of start the conversation and get to know each other, and I really love that part because getting to know your clients, on a personal basis, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, it's the true art of connecting, right?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I started out with a small circle that was Paul Cullen, the musician, and then it was Paul Cullen, the chef, and then sommelier, and then travel. And now we have a concert room, as you probably know, where the Fitzky brothers play, and we've had Tony Levin from Peter Gabriel, and John Ford Coley, and it's just the list goes on. Robert Randolph's played there twice, so I'm getting my circle's getting bigger and bigger. So you either have gone to my concert venue or done a dinner, bought my wine, or traveled with me, or all four,
Right.
And when I do the dinners, it's a really good opportunity for me to get to know the client and then to find out what we're doing next. We're going to Tuscany in 2025 or whatever it may be. I really the connection is super cool.
So that's a good segue. Talk about the culinary travels that you guys are doing in 2024. You're doing four of them, correct?
We got three
Three.
in
Okay. Yeah.
2024. Yeah, we have Barbados in January, which we just did this January, and we're taking 70 people on a tall sailing ship, and it's 437 feet long. It only holds 200 people, and has 100 staff, so it's a 1-to-2 ratio. And the ship actually sails. It's the only one that size that actually sails, and it's modeled after the old tall sailing ships, and has 5 masts and 55 sails. And when there's the wind, man, they shut off the engines and you're gone. And they always have this big sort of presentation, when they pull up the sails, and they have LED lights, and they have like Game of Thrones style music on, or Viking music, and they all run out there with their striped shirts on and khaki pants and pull up the sails. And it's just a great experience. And we do a lot of fun stuff. So that's in Barbados, and we just kind of hang around in those islands: St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenadines, Grenada, right in that area. So yeah, that's super cool. And then April, we're doing one of the ones I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that's Cuba. So we're taking 40 people to Havana and staying downtown. And 2 events that I'm really excited about. I'm cooking with different chefs each time, and then I'm playing with different musicians. That one sold fast. I mean, excuse me, sold fast. I'm like, wow, I think we could do this on a regular basis. So we'll see how it all goes in April, and then in October we're doing Rome to Barcelona on Oceania Cruise Lines, which is the ultimate food and wine cruise line, and we're stopping in super cool places. I've been to some, and some I haven't. Malta, Tunisia, Sicily, 2 stops, Amalfi, Sardinia, Corsica, Marseille, France, Monte Carlo, and Barcelona. And on those 3 of those stops, we're doing wine trips to different wineries as a group, and having like lunch and stuff like that, and which are really fun. So those are the 3 that we have going on for 24.
It's awesome. It's the ultimate way to connect with like your guests, and so
It's
yeah,
been
kudos
insane.
to you, my friend.
It's been insane. We started out 10 years ago doing group trips just because a travel agent heard about us and said, "Hey, you should do group trips." I'm like, who the hell would want to go with me? And now look at this. Next year I have over 100 people with 3 trips going,
Yeah.
So now it's becoming lucrative, right? Before it was, let's break even, spend a couple bucks, but make people happy. And now it's turning into a business. And it's a business I really like, because the money that I can make on that lets me take the time off from cooking for people in their homes, and I can build that. I started with 1 a year, now I'm doing 3. 25 could be 4. And that's a sort of my my retirement job. So I love that it's taking off, and I think it's because everything else is it's all organically happening, and they're all working with each other to help each other, each one of my segments that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. So my last question about food before we move to the wine. So living in Lewis and Rehoboth, you have to have a favorite seafood. And my question for you, when you do mussels, do you prefer a marinara or a white sauce or like
White
a
wine
wine?
garlic for sure.
White wine and
With
garlic. Okay.
crusty bread. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta have it. Gotta have lots of bread. I'm always asking for extra bread because that you got to get all that white wine, garlic, olive oil on that bread and eat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess my two favorite. I mean, we have such great restaurants, but my go-to, Henlopen City Oyster House in Rehoboth, and then the Lewis Oyster House in Lewis and Harbor in Lewis, and that's where you get beautiful views with great food. So they're probably my three favorite seafood. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but whatever. I can't help that. There's so many restaurants.
Yeah. You are really, they are really blessed with the amount of great restaurants that are
It's
down in that
insane. I
area.
think somebody mentioned this a while back. I think per capita, we might have the best restaurant scene in the country,
At
because
least
of,
the East Coast. Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I mean, because we don't have a lot of people that actually live in these towns, but we have restaurants like they were like a finger or a suburb of DC or Philadelphia or something. And
Yeah.
that's probably why those people, they come here and they have summer homes here or they live here now and they support higher dollar restaurants, which means in most cases higher quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the wine part. You now have your own wine, correct? You are
Correct.
about to release it to up to 40 states, correct? That people will be able to buy online.
Mhm.
And you've been doing it for about 14 years, is that correct?
Yeah, so I got in the business because I was at restaurants no longer here, sadly. It's called Naj. And me and my wife, when we go out, most of the time we sit at the bar because I love meeting new people. And I got so many things from that. And whether it's in-home dining or they come to the concert room or they buy my wine, whatever. And we love talking to people. And of course, my wife brags on me, which is really cool. That way here, I don't have to brag on me. So yeah, so we were sitting at Naj and we heard this couple talking, and I heard Buffalo come up. I mean, that's where I'm from, and I said Buffalo. I said I'm from there. He goes, I've been there for 30 something years, and blah blah blah. I live in Orchard Park, right by the stadium. And then we started talking, and of course, my wife tells them I used to be famous and all this stuff, and they're like, "Wow, that's so cool." And I said, "Yeah, we're starting up an Italian wine import company called Portofino, Vino. And I said, "Oh, wow, that's awesome." And he goes, "Yeah, we're looking for somebody here to open it up in Delaware." I'm thinking, well, of course, I jumped right in. I'm like, well, I know a lot of people in the business, restaurants. That's what I was doing, was playing restaurants. And so the next thing I know, I had a job selling Italian wine. And so I woke up the next morning. I'm like, yeah, it probably ain't going to happen. So I get this call from Italy while I was driving. And I actually pulled over and took it. It was the business partner. And he goes, I heard you want to help sell wine in Delaware. I'm like, hell yeah. And so he kind of knew my background a little bit and then
Right.
started talking. And, the next thing I know, I was selling Italian wine. And, which was really cool because I just started getting into wine. So, 14 years ago, 16 years ago, we would go to wine tastings at our local wine shop, Teller
Mhm.
Wines. And me and my wife were experimenting and trying different wines. And so it was perfect timing because I was just learning about Italian wines, and so yeah, it was awesome. I had a blast with it, and then I flew over to Italy, me and my wife, for the first time 14 years ago, and met my producers. And that's what I was talking about when we walked into a vineyard, and Nona wanted to make some food for us. That was one of the vineyards, and it's great because a lot of those relationships I made back then, they're still great friends of mine, and they want to do wines for me. So it was awesome. It was really good. And then I was doing so well with it. I said, I'm looking at getting my own wine. And I started out, you have to apply through the government and all that happened. And then I found, just by digging, I found a winery in California that did wine for me. But it was like 12 years ago. It was called Sonata, musically termed, named wine, and I did pretty good with it. What I found out is I didn't need to quit my day job yet, which was playing music, and go sell wine. So I learned a valuable lesson on that. That's why I'm not quitting doing in-home dining just to sell wine. So luckily my in-home dining is really helping the wine business. So I learned a lot from it. It was an awesome experience. And then so I still have that permit that allows me to sell wine in America, in the United States. So once you have that, it never goes away. So a friend of mine told me that, and I said, because of my in-home dining, I was using all my friends' wines. And I was like, wait, I'm not making any money on that. I don't like that. Plus, I just loved to brand, the wine with what I do. So and I know all about the wines, and I talk like, educatedly about it, and I teach people about it, which I love. And so 2 years ago, I applied for I already have my basic permit, they call it. Then I applied for my import license. It'll be 2 years, December, and I got it in 10 days. So then I'm like, now I reached out to all my peeps in Italy, and they're like, hell yeah, we'll do a wine for you. So I don't know if you saw the label, but it's a guitar, and I found the lady in Colorado that I bought that guitar from, and then that's been our logo ever since, which was like over 2 years ago. So yeah, so it's been really cool to kind of watch that process happen. And then pairing the wine. So I love to pair the food and the wines together. I really don't like doing a dinner if I'm not able to do that, because it's really special when people get to taste, this risotto with mushrooms and a homemade sausage with this Barbera d'Asti from the same region that you would get that dish. That's how I connect the dots with that. I would never do like a bolognese or red sauce and use Barbera. Now some people would, and I guess maybe scientifically it works, but for me, you gotta, if you're gonna have a red sauce, you gotta have Sangiovese or Chianti. There's other options, but I'm just saying I love the fact of taking, because each region in Italy has their own wine that's maybe not even in any other region, and then there are foods that they have, and then so now you've got a good template for pairing stuff, pairing wines and food together. And I love that regional specific pairings.
Yeah, so I worked at a, tapas restaurant when I was in college, and so I got introduced to like South American wines, so like
Yeah.
Carmenères and Malbecs,
Mhm.
and then I kind of like from there got into Old Vines Infidels, and so that's kind of my go-to now, which is very odd for most people. That's not their go-to, but I just
Yeah.
love the full bodiness of an old vine. It's
Sure. That's what's cool about wine. It's just like music, right? There's great wines, there's good wines, there's average wines, but it's all about what you like. And I never down anybody for that. Now I know what I don't like, and that's big Napa cabs that the only thing you can possibly eat is a big T-bone with a big strip of fat on it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some balanced cabs out there too, and I don't mean to generalize, but overall, that's the people like that. In fact, that's why Super Tuscan came out for Italy, is because the Italians wanted to take advantage of the popularity of cabs. And now I've noticed they're actually pulling back from that and going more toward balanced wines. And I like balanced wines. I love French wines. I love Spanish. I love Italian. Greek have cool wines. California, Paso Robles has more balanced wines. I'm a more of a balanced type of person overall. Like when I drink a beer, I don't want the hops to just take over my whole face. You know what I mean? So I try, and that's what I am with wines too. And I love the Italian way of making wines. You have to follow the rules. You can't, if there's a famous wine, and one of the most expensive wines is Brunello di Montalcino. It's a Sangiovese that has specific rules in the bottle for 5 years. Has to be 100% Sangiovese, grown in this just penciled in area called Montalcino. Now, if they have a bad year, they don't manipulate the wine to sell a Brunello. They skip it, and they skip a year if they have a bad year. They'll put it in a bottle, call it Rosso di Montalcino, which is you can buy for $15 a bottle instead of 85. It's going to be pretty damn good, but it's not a Brunello. So I love the fact that they, in most cases, of course, you have your ones that don't, but follow the rules and true to your art form of making wine. And France does that too. Old World does that. Some United States vineyards do that. But there's no rules in California. You can do whatever you want to your wines, basically. So to add body and No, there's a whole nother thing on that. But I love the fact that I cook Italian, and then I'm all about Italian wines. And I'm still learning. There's 600 plus varietals that are documented, and there's more out there. So I love learning about new ones. And I have people standing in the kitchen at their house. They're like, "Have you had this one?" I'm like, "No, what is that? Let's try that." And what region is this from? And like let's talk about it. And and to me, that's the fun part about that. It's just like food and music and wine. I'll never know it all, but I'm going to learn as much as I can while I'm doing all this, because there's nothing better than being knowledgeable about what you're doing. And I do tell people, I know enough to be dangerous about food, wine, and music. So I know more than most. So it makes me sound like I really know what I'm talking about. But I have my idols, my lookups do, like Mario Batali, the chef, even though he's done some crazy stuff. And then my friend Jeff, who owns Osteria in Philadelphia, and he's a James Beard winning chef. And then my musician friends like Robert Randolph and the guys in Bad Company, and then my wine people. I have a master somm and Italian master sommelier that just loves me, and I get stuff from him all the time, and I learn. You know what I mean? I think life would be pretty freaking boring if you weren't learning all the time. And I pride myself in that, and I pride myself in having the knowledge to, when somebody does ask a question, that I can pretty much answer it.
So you just kind of touched on James Beard. You did a Sunday supper event with the James Beard Foundation, correct? Was that in February?
Awesome. Yeah, we were actually the wine partner. We were so honored. And it was in Wilmington, and all the James Beard nominated chefs in our area. I mean, Wilmington is crushing it right now. I'm so happy for them, because for so long it really wasn't really known for food. Now it's a great place. In fact, me and my wife used to go to Philadelphia all the time to get away and go to James Beard winning chef places, just really cool places. And last January we went to Wilmington and just were blown away by everything. So that foundation reached out to me through my friend who's a food writer, Pam George. And so we were the actual partner with James Beard, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Paul Cares, the nonprofit, and your relationship with Jim.
So Jim was with an organization called SCORE, and I forget the acronym, but it's for retired entrepreneurs helping newer entrepreneurs. And I'd already started my in-home dining. I was 2-3 years in, and I'm kind of like a forward thinker. How can I be better? How can I make this work better? And obviously then I start taking on brands and stuff. But so I met him at a chamber meeting in Bethany, and I said, "This is what I'm doing. I'm looking to take it to another level." So he's been with me, for 5 years now. And so as he's helping me with this, we needed to find a place, which is the room at Cedar Grove, which we actually called Paul's Kitchen for a while, just because we needed a commercial kitchen, because my wife was sick of cleaning up after me here. And especially chicken liver pate. She didn't even want to touch or smell that. But it's one of my favorite things I make, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's just, helped me with the business side of things. We looked at 7 different places, and he would do the numbers for me, right? I'm like, "Man, I really like this place." He goes, "Okay, I'm going to go home and do the numbers. I'll send them to you." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to lose $30,000 this year. So no, that's not my place." So he's been really good on the financial side for me, to making me take that, I'm the excited guy, like, "Oh my God, we can do this and do that, do that." And then he goes, "How about this?" I'm like, No, we're not doing this and that. So, and then we were helping nonprofits, and I didn't spend any money on marketing my in-home dining. That was just a word of mouth, except I gave dinner for 8 to nonprofits to sell live auction, at their fundraising events. Well, after I added it up, I raised over $230,000 in 3 years for our nonprofits. And I was thinking, wow, this is really cool. I wonder, and I always kind of had that in my mind, I'd love to have my own. I'd love to pay it forward. I think it's even a better term to pay it forward than having then I wasn't thinking nonprofit. I was thinking I want to help young kids and adults in the culinary musical arts. So I talked to Jim about it, and he said, let's do it. So we formed it in 2020. Of course, it was COVID year, so stuff went kind of slow at the beginning. And then we started, moving forward and started giving awards to people to send them to school and helping out the local high schools. Our first thing was actually it was a middle school, kindergarten. I'm sorry. There's these bells that are in the key of C. So there's 6, 7 bells. So no matter if somebody's playing the C chord, you can hit any of those bells and it's in tune, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the school was short, like, I don't know, 20 sets of bells. So that was our first award. And I went there and I played with them, and they had all the bells on stage, and they're all banging on the bells, and that was pretty cool. So like I said, I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted to be able to help people. Like, I had mentors, right? Throughout my, I didn't start playing an instrument until I was 20. And my mentor, Stacy's the one that said, you should play bass instead of guitar, because he was going to teach me how to play guitar. So I know, that, I know that helped me tremendously. So the Fitzke brothers that, their mom wanted to call me their mentor. This was like 4 years ago when I first met them. They were only like 3 feet tall, and now they're taller than me. And I said, no, I don't want to be called mentor. I don't like that. It's too much pressure. So they called me Uncle Paulie. But in the meantime, that's when the whole idea got going with Paul Cares. And, then me and Jim got it together. And in fact, we sent the Fitzke brothers to the band camp up at Woodstock, Roots Rock.
Road to Roots. Yeah.
So, and because of that, we made a lot of great connections with Melody Trucks and all those guys too, which has been super cool. So that's where we are on that. We're in our kind of our third full year, and we've done some cool stuff. And we just had our first golf tournament in October, which was a blast. And so we just didn't have a golf tournament. Then my band Bad River, which is me and Tony from the Little River Band, we have a band called Bad River. So we played that, and after the golf tournament, we had like a private, like a VIP party. So you could either do the golf tournament and come to the party, or you could just buy a ticket for the party. And so it was really cool. So we've done some pretty big fundraising events, concert for the kids at the Milton Theater twice, 2 years in a row. So yeah, it's been really gratifying, and so now the place that used to be called Paul's Kitchen is called the Room at Cedar Grove Paul Cares. So all the ticket sales from all the concerts, everything we do there goes to Paul Cares, which is cool.
So talk about that venue itself. Talk about the experience that guests have when they go to a show there.
The guests love it, but the musicians even love it more because a musician owns it, right? So that we get them fed and give them great food and drinks and wine, and we just treat them with the respect that musicians should be treated with, which, as I know, you don't always get treated that way. It's a great venue. I mean, I've had, several, Robert Randolph's played there twice. He likes it so much. And Tony Levin's coming back again in the spring for the third time. And, so it's been a really cool thing. The guests get this intimate 60-seat room where they get to watch the entertainers, get to hear the stories. And it's a true listening room. I mean, we actually go around and tell people to shut up. I mean, I'm like, hey, this is a listening room. This isn't a bar, and it's been really rewarding. And then having people, bands like the Fitzke Brothers and Melody Trucks playing together, and then I get to play there once in a while, which is really fun for me. And that's the only time I get to play bass anymore is with Bad River. So yeah, so it's been great, and the outpouring of support from the locals has just been great, because there's nothing like what we do in our area. The closest would be like the Avalon Theater in Easton, or up in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. So yeah. It's been super cool. And we started out with like 34 seats. Now we're up to 60. So we're trying to squeeze as many in as possible in the little space that we have. But I think the overall experience for everybody is pretty incredible, because you get dinner also. So it's dinner. It's like a supper club. So it's dinner and a concert.
Yeah. Do you envision it being bigger than 60 seats, or is that kind of, you feel like that's ideal?
I really like that. We're actually in negotiations with an outdoor area, which would keep us from trying to expand that one, because this one we can probably have up to 700 people. So those acts that we can't afford that want to play our place, we can put them in the outdoor outdoor venue. We're getting ready. Getting ready to sign the deal here next week, and we'll be doing more festivals like blues festivals, bluegrass. I want to do an international food and wine festival out there, something super cool that you don't see in our area. And yeah, we got a lot of ideas for a place that's can hold up to 700 people outside. We have an amazing concert venue called Freeman Stage, and so we could be like right under that for the people that can't quite play Freeman. They can play our place. And we've already got some thoughts about some of the people that played our place putting bands together and doing like 3-band, afternoon, and getting people to come sit outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. And so that's for that. Expanding the room would take some pretty serious money. We've thought about maybe getting a capital grant, for that. But I think right now we're just going to keep it intimate. And then now that we have the bigger venue, that we can run bands that can't play our place because they're too expensive, we can run them out there.
Well, I heard I think there's a podcast maybe that might be able to cover those events when you start it. So,
Oh yeah,
just a little FYI.
okay, good to know. Putting that in my mental notes. Although I should
Absolutely.
probably write it down because I can't remember anything anymore.
Well, you got too much going on, of course.
And it's crazy. I wake up some mornings at like 3 a.m, like, oh my God, what do I got to do today? But it's all good. It's definitely better than the opposite. And I've been to the opposite, which is not being in a good place in life and having too much time to think about how bad life is. I think that's part of what I went through, before I moved here. And I just kind of felt sorry for myself and why did it happen to me? And it's really easy to do when you've been on that situation on that level, and then you're not. And we didn't have social networking back then to network. I was stuck in Fort Myers, Florida. But it's been awesome. I'm just hanging on and enjoying life as much as I can, and just building the brand. I'm not sure where it's all going to go. I just see it going. One thing I do know is I'll be doing in-home dining till I'm in a walker or a wheelchair. Which, knock on wood, I hope doesn't happen too soon. But yeah, and then we're hoping the wine business, we're poised and done a lot of research on this e-commerce, and we've got companies working for us now. I just met with a company that's going to do my email marketing and all my social networking and as far as buying ads and getting the word out there about my wine, and which is kind of cool because it intertwines with my in-home dining and my travel, and then we have the concert room. But just those three, that are on my website, the wine can help the other two work really well and vice versa. But, if we're selling a lot of wine, we have plans to, like somebody wants to fly me to Arizona to do a dinner, that I could come and do a dinner at their house, if you buy enough wine, or even better, I can do just like we're doing today on Zoom. I can, you guys buy 3 cases of wine. We'll pick a night. I'll hang out by my fireplace and we'll Zoom and I'll play music. You can put me up on your big screen, ask me questions, and kind of a little bit taking a little of the playbook from the COVID times, where I did those. I did those, from my house. I would do wine tastings and dinners and stuff. So
You have to be innovative, If you aren't, you just get left behind, right?
we were definitely, we would turn on a dime when we had to just try to make it work. Yeah, pivot, I guess is the word. Yeah, and we survived it. And I didn't get, I wasn't a restaurant, right? So I didn't get anything really. Yeah, but it is what it is. I made it through it. I don't owe anybody anything, and we survived. And one nice part, maybe the only nice part, is I had three months off with my wife and my doggies, and then because then once June came of COVID, we ended up doing over 175 dinners that year. We did 24 of them in September of COVID because I was a great alternative. Okay, they could only bring 4 people to a restaurant. They had to be family, and people were hunkered down here. I mean, they even like slipped out of New York to get to their beach house, and they were here for months. So overall, it ended up being okay for me, even though it's devastating for a lot of my friends and especially people in the restaurant business that I know that didn't make it through it. So, and musicians. So luckily I made it through all that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I am, and I want to get your thoughts on that because you go to restaurants a lot and you appreciate restaurants for everything they do. I'm concerned that down the road, and maybe not next year, or maybe not even 5 years, but I think down the road, I think restaurants and going out to eat, other than like your fast food and like your national corporate chains, I think it's going to become very, very expensive to do that.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure the general public will be able to do that like they do now in our country. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I hope not. I think I see the trend that's happening, and a lot of it's more experience based. Obviously, like mine's an experience. I call it the in-home dining experience. And some people are like, "Oh, so you cater?" I'm like, "No, I don't cater. No, no, it's an in-home dining experience. It's the full Monty. I'm not dropping a bunch of trays of meatballs and rigatoni off to you. That's not what we do." Uh, so I think, and I've seen some of these places pop up now. It's not always um, they got to find the right business model so they can make money doing it. Obviously finding the right space with the right lease, and then your utilities, what all that. You got to find the right space to do it. But there's places that do, like the one in Nashville called the Catbird Seat, which I've yet to go to. As a friend of mine's buddy's the chef there, but just their business model is, they do two seatings for 16 people, or just, off the top of my head, uh, they do 2 times a night, four days a week, and they sell out every time. So it's really hard to get in. So I think we're going to see this, and I kind of seen a little bit already in this area, is giving you more of an experience, and I think the bigger groups, restaurant groups, don't have to make as much money after each one, after each restaurant. But if they have six, then they can survive, not only keeping management in place and all that. The one-off restaurants are going to be tougher, I think, to stay in business. Um, I guess it all depends on, the economy, and if prices keep going up, they're stable right now. Geez, our pork prices are awesome right now compared to what they were COVID, and right after COVID, it's like $2 less a pound now, and chicken also. So I only notice what I order. Everything's been kind of in line, and or going down. There's a couple things that jump up, like once in a while, like milk will jump up, like cream, heavy cream will jump up, and then the next week it's back down. But overall, I am seeing too much of a. I've seen more stuff going down in the last 2 years than going up. So maybe that's a good sign for restaurants.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully.
I hope so.
So, as a music podcast, I'm sure our audience is wondering at this point, like, well, when are we going to talk about music? Like, this guy was in bad
Yeah,
company, right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
let's talk about music. So, you started playing at the age of 20, which I think in, most cases that's old for starting to play music, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. But people have been playing since 12. Those are the ones that don't like me, because I started at 20, and I had a great mentor, like I was talking about, and he was going to teach me how to play guitar, because I was like, I want to learn how to play guitar. I guess let me back up a little bit. The way it all worked out is I was an athlete in high school. I played three sports, but year round. Two things of soccer, basketball, and tennis. I love music. Went to concerts all the time. And then my parents bought a business down in Florida. It was a dry cleaning business. I said I would go help them. I left the day after I graduated high school. Uh, the good thing about what I found out about working in the dry cleaning business is I didn't want to be in the dry cleaning business. So that was a good motivator for me. I helped them out. We did really well. And I said, you know what? I love music. Maybe I'll play guitar. So I got a guitar, fiddled around, and found a teacher. And he's an amazing jazz player. He's kind of like a Pat Metheny style, which I love Pat Metheny. And he said, Paul, I'll teach you how to play guitar. He goes, but I really think you need to play bass. I think he was thinking for himself, actually, because there wasn't many bass players back then, and maybe not as many now. I don't know. But yeah, so he said, here, listen to Jaco Pastorius. I'm like, huh? Who's this guy? So I heard his first solo album, and then Weather Report albums. I'm like, wow, that's bass guitar. And And I said, you know what, I'm going to go. So the next day I went out and bought a bass, and he's kind of tutored me on learning how to play technique wise as much as he could help me. Practice with a metronome from day one. He would chart out things for me like the bass line to Moon Dance, and I would learn it, by ear. And just started, man. And then within 6 months, I was playing in a country band, making $350 a week. There was no bass players out there, right? So these guys loved it. I mean, it was a great band for me to start in. They were called Foxfire, and really talented musicians. And the singer played fiddle, so we did a lot of Charlie Daniels. And then I was off and running, man. I played with that band for 6 months, and I joined a top 40 band at the Brown Derby, and we played like whatever the top 40 music was in 1982. And I joined a band called the Kids, they're from Memphis, but I met them in Florida. They needed a bass player. Next thing I know, I'm in Alaska playing when I'm 23 years old. And we worked our way out there: Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon. And then they flew us to Alaska, and we played for 3 months in Alaska. So my first 3 years were very, very entertaining, and I made really good money, and because of being a bass player and the connections I was making, I was able to go from one band to another pretty easily, and just keep playing, because I knew starting at 20 years old, man, I needed to get experience. Not only should I practice every day, but I need to play music with different musicians every night, and it worked out great, man. 10 years of that and having a blast, and then we had a band. I moved back to Fort Myers where I lived, and we had a band called the Boys of Summer. That was the drummer from Lewis. And we had a song being played on the radio. It was called Little Black Book. And very rarely did you get played on rock radio if you didn't have a record deal. And just happened the singer at the time from Bad Company, not Paul Rogers, the other guy, and then Cliff from AC/DC, the bass player, and Brian Johnson, the singer, all lived there. And somehow, man, the word was out, and they used to come out and see our band play. And then we actually mixed our song Little Black Book at Cliff from AC/DC's house. He had a 24-track studio, and he helped us mix it to get it on the radio. So anyway, so we got a group of people and just became great friends. I used to golf with Brian Johnson from AC/DC on a regular basis. And me and Cliff, the bass player from AC/DC, got to be good friends. And then the bass player from Bad Company didn't want to go back out anymore. He wanted to play jazz in London. So, which I got to see him do, and I got to meet him, which was really cool. So yeah, they're like, hey, Paul would be a great bass player for you guys, and at that time I was playing like 6 nights a week. I was playing really good. I even watch videos and go, damn, I was playing pretty good, So yeah, so they got a phone call. 2 weeks later, they flew me to London. I was there for 2 weeks, got the job after 2 songs on the first day I was there, and then flew home, flew out to LA I had a ticket waiting for me, flew to LA to do the video, which is Holy Water, which is on my website. And then flew home for like a couple days and went to Burlington, Vermont, is where we did our pre-production and our first concert. So I think it was pretty much within like under 6 weeks from when I got the phone call that I was playing in front of 8,000 people in Burlington, Vermont. So it was pretty wild, pretty surreal for sure. Like, yeah, for the first part of all that, I'd be like waking up in the morning going, well, a lot of times I had hangovers because those guys could drink from England. And in fact, that's why they liked me, is because I could keep up with them. Yeah, I wake up and like, where am I? Oh shit, I'm in Burlington, Vermont. Oh yeah, I'm in Bad Company. So it was like that for a while. And but yeah, it was amazing time, and it ended too early for me monetarily and everything, but in the grand scheme of things, it all worked out okay. I got to actually do it, and that really helps people wouldn't be nearly as enamored with what I do if I didn't play in Bad Company. And I'm not stupid enough, to realize that, so, but it's all good because I just think it's funny, haha, that people think it was cool that I played in that band and they hired me to come to their house and cook for them. So, I never got any residuals from Bad Company, but that is one, right?
So you covered a lot there. So I'm going to go back for a little bit.
Yeah,
So
sorry about that. I got
no, 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 you're fine. I didn't want to interrupt you, and you were. This is great. So the first 3 years, let's just go back to of you like getting into playing bands. I was a hotel manager for 22 years. I am intrigued by there has to be a good hotel story from those first 3 years involving the band or you yourself.
yeah. I mean, we were pretty full on. One band I played in, Ricky Smith band. He was a impressionist. We did a tribute to Rod Stewart was his thing, and then he started doing other ones like Prince and stuff. He was really amazing. He was a pain in the ass, but he was really really talented. But yeah, we play like the Sheridans and the Ramada Inns in the South. That meaning like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. Because there's a whole circuit of those, hotels that had bars, and you don't see too many of those anymore. But yeah, and they put you up in the hotel, and so yeah, those were some crazy times because he was crazy and we partied hard, and because we had nothing else to do, we didn't have to be to work until 9:30 every night. So what the hell you do, And we certainly got in that rock and roll lifestyle, and I was kind of known to be. I wasn't a womanizer. They were just attracted to me for some reason. I'm not sure why, but so yeah. So there were several stories on that line. I don't know if we want to go into those, but
No.
it was a great experience. For me, like somebody like him, I joined the band, and he goes, he goes, yeah, you're a good bass player. He goes, I'm happy to have you in the band. I'm like, well, this is cool. I knew the band worked all the time. And I was all about that. I didn't even want a week off. I wanted to work all the time. I needed the money and I needed the experience. And he goes, well, you're gonna be my announcer. Like, you guys will play a couple songs and then you're gonna talk. I'm like, I gotta talk on the microphone? Are you kidding me? So that was like my first experience. It was in what was it? Albany, Georgia. I had to talk to the crowd. I was scared shitless. And then it got to a point where they had to get the hook out there and pull me because I wouldn't shut up. So, but those were interesting times, especially playing in the deep South. Yeah, we had long hair, we wore spandex. Women loved us, guys not so much. Of course, when we went out to breakfast late night, we always put our jeans on.
The after work attire, right?
Yeah. It's
So
funny how women liked spandex and makeup and long ass hair better than short with jeans and a cowboy hat. Yeah, I don't know, man. It was wild.
yeah, it is kind of crazy how decades have changed.
Oh my god, yeah.
So okay, so 3 years you're into the band, you get the call from Bad Company to come to London. Like headspace where you were at, like life wise, like relationship wise, like would you say you were in a good spot at that point, or like were you kind of like I needed this lift off kind of?
Probably a combination of both. So it was 10
Okay.
years from the time I picked up bass until I auditioned for Bad Company. And
Okay.
I worked really hard that whole time. But that band, Boys of Summer, we had was really good. And
Right.
if it wasn't for not everybody being on the same page, which of course you have that with bands, I'm not gonna go into details, but they weren't as focused as I was. I'll put it that way. To being successful. And I think that showed on stage and it showed in my personality. I was the business guy of the band. I took care of the money. I took care of the bookings. And I learned that because that got handed off to me in a couple bands. They're like, yeah, you're way better at doing this. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do this. so, so I think with the guys that I met in AC/DC and Bad Company, they saw that confidence for one. I was playing really good. Like, so my keyboard player posts videos every once in a while, and I watch him going, okay, I get that. I was playing really good, and no wonder I got the job in Bad Company. They weren't feeling sorry for me. I mean, they knew I could play bass, and they knew I had a good personality, and I partied, but I didn't overdo it like other guys, and they really liked my demeanor, and I was just a good guy, and I treated them like they were just friends, not that they were rock stars, right? And And as I found out, being a rock star, you just treat people like they're normal. That it works out really well for you, you know. And yeah, so I was in a good place. Marriage wise, maybe not so, but it wasn't quite bad yet. But just me personally, as a bass player and a person, I was in a really good place. I was ready to go to another level. I was pretty sick of playing bars, and in fact, I think I took a job at a back then a record store called Specs, and just trying to see if I could find something maybe that I could have a living at, other than being a musician. You know, I was getting burned out on the whole party scene and what I had to go through with the guys in the band and stuff, you know. So I was ready for it and I thought about it, but you know what? I didn't ask those guys, you know, how could I get on and, you know, can you help me out? But my other guys did. They would ask them like, "Hey man, hey, can you get me a gig playing in a rock band?" And I never did that. I don't know. I was just me. And I think they appreciated that, and that's why I got the job.
Yeah. So what do you think is why do you think Bad Company has become this, you know, such big band for so many fans worldwide? What is it about Bad Company?
I think it's the uniqueness of the music, and the talent of the musicians. Okay, that's probably pretty common for most, right? You two, but in knowing the band like I did, I mean, you know, Boz Burrell was an amazing bass player. I don't know if you know, but he played in King Crimson, so he was no slouch. He added this cool jazzy vibe, this funky groove thing that Simon could play like straight drums, which he was great at. Then Mick had this beautiful guitar tone, and he was a great songwriter. And then you got maybe one of the best voices in rock, you know, proven through Free and Queen and Bad Company and then The Firm. You know, I mean, just iconic. And you know, I think that combo of the songwriters and then the other musicians filling in on what should be played was just amazing. You know, I mean, Mick was such a great songwriter, and his tone on stage and then the studio was just stellar. He played a '59 Les Paul through a Marshall, a half stack, and just, man, that guitar could sing. And I would go over on his side of the stage in front of 20,000 people and egg him on, and just like, man, I want to hear you play, man. And so I think it was that the songwriting was excellent. I mean, some of those songs like Silver, Blue, and Gold, and you know, even Seagull that Paul wrote. And yeah, I mean, there's so many cool, awesome songs that they'd written also. And I think it was a true team effort, you know, when they were recording, you know, and each guy added their element to the song, and they're catchy and great hook lines and great riffs. I mean, Good Love and Gone Bad. Oh my God, what a great song that is, you know. So I think it was a combination of all, which is pretty common to other bands, but I think they had just a specialness of the guys coming from different places and then coming together. It wasn't like they grew up together, right? They were kind of like a super group when maybe Cream was the only other super group, or Blind Faith, right? You know, and they were put together basically by Peter Grant from Led Zeppelin, you know, and so they had a good start, and they didn't have to struggle too much, because that first album, they actually went in the studio because John Bonham had alcohol poisoning, and they had to cancel the recording session in the studio in this castle. So Bad Company wasn't even ready yet. So that first Bad Company album was written, the rest of it was written and recorded in 2 weeks at that castle. So if you really, and then you go back and listen to that, you're like, wow, that is so cool. You can hear the rawness of it. You know, now I love Straight Shooter, and I'm a big fan of Running with the Pack. You know, but that first album was super special because they didn't have time to think it, right? And it happens a lot on your first album, right? You don't have time to think it. You just do it. And then the next thing they know, they're off touring. And then 2 years later, they got a jet named Bad Company, and, you know, and then the rest was history, you know. Yeah. And it's just too bad that, you know, they couldn't get along toward the end. And I think, you know, from the stories I heard, you know, it was just tough for Paul, because Paul wanted a little bit more. I think he wanted more, which he got actually. He wanted more control, but he was a drinker back then, and I'm sure he would admit it too, that wasn't a good combo for him. And
Yeah.
so then they ended up breaking up, and I was so excited that they got back together. I think it was '99. They got back together as the original band, and I saw some shows that were it was amazing. Sad part is they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm just stunned at that. And I'm not just saying that because I was in the band. I'm saying it because I'm stunned. you know.
Well, I was going to talk about that, so I'm glad you did. So, Dolly earlier said, I'm not going to go in because I'm not rock and roll and it should only be rock and roll. And like, I get that side of it, but I also get like the side of it that, rock and roll is from like roots. It's from the blues. It's from, like, it's just a mashup of all of these genres that we've all been listening to for, hundreds of years. So, Celtic music, it's all. So, what's your take on that?
No, I love all the genres being in there. I'm just sad, and I get it. I mean, I get music because I've been in it my whole life, and I'm a music lover also, right? I get it. People can be less talented and be more popular, yeah, because of their shtick, what they did on stage, or their songs are catchy. I mean, I get all that. I mean, I don't like the New York Dolls. I would never listen to them, but I appreciate what David Johansen and them did. I get that. But just talent wise and song wise, and selling 30 million albums or whatever they sold, I just find it. That's what's just discouraging and disturbing about it, is that band like them are not in there. Yeah, let everybody else in, but and here's what I learned. I got to share this with you. Is I was doing one of my clients has a yacht in Miami, and he flew me down to play and just kind of hang out with his rich people friends. Two of them were on the board of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. So of course I have a couple glasses of wine in. I'm like, dude, well, why isn't Bad Company in? They're like, yeah, I get those questions about other bands too. I'm like, no, but I'm not kidding. Like, why are they not in? And these guys are on the board. These are the guys that vote, right? They had like some of the most stupid responses that I've ever heard. They're so stupid, I don't even want to repeat them. But I get it because they're scorned musicians that are millionaires that are on the board, and they have the power to bring people in and out, or either have them in or not. You know what I mean? So it's not decided, just like a lot of the Hall of Fames. They're not decided by the people that maybe should be deciding them. Maybe the football is because it's the members that vote you in, but it's a political thing. And I saw it and I couldn't believe it. I was stunned that night. I was like, no wonder they're not in, because their criteria is just ridiculous, and so I got that. I see why. And then the main guy just got let go. So everybody's like excited about getting their favorite band in now. But
yeah,
I just
Jan Warner, right?
Yeah. And I just think I think it would just be an honor, not for me at all. I'm not even thinking at all for me, but just for the guys that are still alive. And Mick Ralphs, I don't know if he had a stroke in 16 or 18, and he's bedridden. He'll never walk again or play guitar or any of that. He wouldn't even be able to go. I just like to see them get their due, before they die. I know, and it sounds terrible, but
Yeah, that it is unfortunate, and you're right. There are other bands definitely that are out there, but it is very surprising why. But as you said, when it comes down to politics, we're not politicians.
No, I know.
So, you've released 2 solo albums, correct?
Actually, I have 5.
Okay.
4 were on CD, and then I have a 5. The 5th one's a download.
Okay.
Part of my ebook, From Bad Company to Good Company. I have a biography. Yep. So I started in 2007 with Dream Dance. So 2007 is when I consciously put down my bass and picked up guitar and started writing songs. So I had 10 songs. I went to the studio in North Carolina that I just played bass on a friend of mine's album. And I played them my demo tracks, and they loved them, and they took them and just made them beautifully done. Made them just beautifully done. I had wondered, like, wow, those are my songs, And so I started out with Dream Dance, and then Paradise was second, and then yeah, and I just kept writing, and then recording, and I started playing more out, and I become sort of the private party wedding person, for play ceremonies and cocktail hours and stuff. So yeah, I became a musician again in 2007
Yeah.
after like not being one for pretty much that whole time between 2001 and 2007. So
What I
yeah,
listen to of your solo stuff, what I get, and you can tell me I'm crazy or not, but I kind of get a little bit of yacht rock. I get a little bit of Tears for Fears.
mm,
I get a little bit of Jack Johnson.
mm.
But overall, it's kind of like that kind of adult contemporary kind of like sound. Is that fair to say?
I'd say so. I think my song "Down by the Lake," which is my newest one, that's more like a Jack Johnson song. Uh, Dream Dance, yeah, yeah, I guess it's about right. I mean, I my first stuff I slid more toward the Latin jazzy side of stuff, which is still what I really like to play.
Mhm.
When I switched to guitar, I had a steel string for a quick second, and then my friend let me play his nylon string, which has the wider neck, so I could get my fingers in there. So if you ever see me play, I play with my fingers like a bass, and I use my thumb a lot too. But yeah, so I kind of lean toward that Latin jazzy side, but yeah, when a song comes out like Down by the Lake, I just let it happen. I don't try to make it anything in
Right.
particular. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you feel like, you know, like where of the three that you're in right now, between the Paul Cares, between the obviously the cooking side of it and then the solo artist side of it, where do you feel like you're giving the most like attention and the most importance to
Well, I think
currently?
pretty equally.
Okay.
Probably a little less on guitar because I have this one song I've been working on. I wrote when I was in Bermuda this year with my wife, and I haven't had a chance to kind of finish it. So I've been working on that a little bit. So the guitar is probably the least of what I do, but I get to play every night. Because I almost work almost every night, right? Because I play after every event or after every dinner. So, but as far as artistically, I haven't had a chance to really finish that song or work on other stuff, which, we're working on a better 24 for me, where I can kind of delegate some stuff like the room, the concert place. We're delegating more now, which we've done over the last year. We've done a great job, and we've got people stepping up and doing the job that I used to do there. So I'm still the figurehead of the whole thing, but I don't have to be the chef. Uh, and then, so I'm having more time. We're hoping in 2024 where I can work more on my music and also travel in the wine business and all that too. But artistically, I need a little bit more time to play guitar because that's what really makes me happy. It
Gotcha.
makes me feel good.
So my last question for you. Your favorite foodie city in the country, and then your favorite city overall just to visit. Just city that you just absolutely love.
Uh, well, it could be a combo of both. I
Okay.
love Philadelphia food. I think we got some of the most talented chefs in the whole world are embedded there. I say that because I get to go there a lot. I'm sure New York City has it. I know I've experienced some good stuff. Philadelphia's less than 2 hours away, and I can be in foodie heaven. I love Asheville, North Carolina, and that could be said about the foodie part too. But musical food, if I didn't have my everything dug in here in this area, the Rehoboth area, I would already have been in Asheville because I think that would be super conducive for what I do.
Okay.
Food, wine, and music. Um, and uh, and I just love the vibe there. And also Charleston and Savannah are my other two kind of go tos. Um, I've been to a lot of other cool places, but just off the top of my head, I'd say those are kind of like my tops.
I've been to Charleston, but it's been a very long time ago, and I am just dying to go back. I just absolutely love Charleston. So it's still, have
It's
you
so
been there in
charming.
the last, like, since COVID?
Yeah,
Have you been there since COVID?
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're doing great. And Savannah, right down the road, is like a little a mini Charleston. They're doing great stuff. But
Right.
but Asheville's just got such a great vibe there, and the mountains, and yeah, it's just and music everywhere. I mean, it is one musical town, more so than most that I've been to, except for maybe Nashville, which I love Nashville too.
Yeah. So, one more question. I'm sorry, I did say it was the last question.
That's okay.
But as a musician with Bad Company, and just as a musician overall, can you remember just a performance that really stuck out to you, whether it was because of the venue, whether it was because of just, how you were playing, whether it was the crowd, you know, talk about that or share that experience with our
Yeah, there's
audience.
only one. I've had some great experiences, but the one that I wrote a song about called "King for the Day," King for a Day, is when I got to go back to Buffalo, my hometown. After I left in '78, I got to go back in '91 as the bass player for Bad Company. So when I left in '78, as I already said, I didn't even play an instrument yet. So I went back to play my hometown for the first time, and it was in front of over 16,000 people. Um, One good thing about Buffalo in February, there's not a lot going on, so they made it a big deal about me being there. And you have to listen to the song "King for a Day." I think it's up on my site, and
Okay.
it was amazing. It's where I saw my first concert in '75, which was Peter Frampton and Jay Giles. And then I saw so many concerts, and then I'm a big hockey fan, so I used to go see the Sabres play all the time. So for me to walk in the back door at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, um, to see the stage up and my tech setting up my bass stuff and seeing Gilles Perreault, the hockey player's jersey hanging from the rafters, and in just that whole experience of being there, where I saw my first concert, it was just beyond amazing. In fact, Tommy Shaw was in our opening band, which was Damn Yankees,
Mm.
and he told me the night before or the day before, he goes, "Man, you only get to play your hometown for the first time, one time." He goes, "Just go out there and have fun, man." He goes, "I'll be with you. I'll be with you." He goes, "I remember when I think he was from Birmingham, Alabama." He goes, "When I played the first time with Styx in Birmingham, it was like unlike no other." And so that was amazing, and he was on the side of the stage cheering me on too. It was pretty cool. They said I was about 3 feet off the floor, that I was floating around. And I had my whole family there, my Italian family and my graduating class from high school, and um, they were all stage right, and that's where my sort of my base area was. So I'd go up there, and they'd all be screaming, and I had to stop looking at them because every time I looked at them, they all jumped up and started screaming. And then afterwards, the parties that we went to, I had a private meet and greet with just me and my family and my friends, and then we had the main one, and then we went to a bar afterwards and played with that band till like 4 in the morning, and it was pretty amazing. I mean, I got a smile on my face right now just thinking about how cool that day was.
Yeah. So talk about for the audience that might even not been born in 91. Talk about the significance of Damn Yankees and like that group. Like because a lot of people might not know anything about them, but I mean, what a cultural significance at that time for that band to like, combine and form, right?
Kind of cool because we were both there. Like our singles had went up in the top 20 in the top, which is the Hot 100. So we were feeding off each other, which was cool because we were on tour together for almost 2 years. Um, yeah, it was a super group put together. It was cool. Tommy Shaw and Jack Blades, Jack from Night Ranger, Tommy from Styx. They had been writing some stuff together, and then I think Tommy had played with Michael Cardelloni, the drummer, who's actually been with Leonard Skinner for the last 15 years or more. Brought him in, and then I don't know, they brought Ted Nugent in. Yeah. Anyways, and the combination worked, but mainly was the songwriting of Tommy and Jack. It was the what's the stage presence of Ted Nugent, maybe that helped. I'm not gonna. One thing I've learned in life, not to talk about other people. And when it's
Right.
not, so I'll give him the I'll give him the applause for his stage presence. But Tommy and especially Tommy really drove that band. His vocals and his guitar playing were stellar, and he was just, I just got to be good. We got to be kind of close out there because we stay in the same hotels a lot of time, and I had breakfast with him, and he was always complimentary, like, dude, man, you're crushing it. Just make sure you stay in front of people, when this thing ends, because it's going to end. I said, I know it's going to end, and we just didn't know when. And but he was fabulous. They wrote some great songs, and Tommy was just an amazing singer.
Yeah, he really was. Or yeah, he's still alive, correct?
Still is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And Styx
yeah.
is killing it, man.
Yeah,
God,
I was gonna
that
say,
new keyboard player, I love him. Yeah,
yeah. It is amazing that these bands are still rocking and rolling and still
crazy.
kicking it, man. Rolling Stones.
I know, man. God love him, man. I think it's amazing. Hey, I'm still kicking around, and I'm 60. I'll be 64 in January. I'm
That's
not
right,
quite as
man.
old as those guys, but somehow I'm still alive after everything I went through, and I'm getting to do what I love to do. I'm very, very fortunate and humbled by it all, and I'm just hanging on, just trying to take it to another level. What the hell, I could always come back to just cook for people in their homes. That's as long as I can walk in and walk out, I'm able to do that.
Yeah. You have your foundation. You're good. Anything else is, gravy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Paul, this has been great. I hope this has been painless for you. It's been amazing for me. Thank you so much for doing this. Good luck the rest of the year. Happy holidays. And yeah, tell Jake and BJ from Lowercase too. I said hi.
I will. I will. They'll
Known
be
those
there
guys
excited.
for known those guys for almost 20 years, so they're
Yeah, they're
good
great,
guys
man. I
too.
love them. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Obviously I'm not shy about talking about myself.
Yeah,
But it is fun to talk about, where I've come from, and it kind of, for me, kind of gives me that, yeah, I am doing good, because some days you just have those days, got too much going on. You don't think about how great your life actually is. And it really is. I'm doing better at that. Trying to yeah. So, but anyways, thanks for having me. I so loved to talk to you, and hopefully we'll get you down sometime and come check out a concert.
absolutely. I would look forward to it, and I appreciate the invitation, my friend.
For sure. All right. Happy holidays, Chad.
Absolutely. So, everybody, you've been all great. I've been Dog. This is Paul. We are the Music Lab Podcast.